Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you got to ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That could only mean one thing. Only one thing. After Hours Live with Chuck Bowser, RCDD, your favorite RCDD, where we answer all of your questions about cable installation, cable certification, cable design, cable estimation, project management. The Beard of Knowledge is in the house. Beard of Knowledge. I was just talking about you. I got TikTok feeding as well. There's a guy in the group named Aso Panda. He wanted to know, is there any courses about networking installation projects? And I thought of you and Ed. So there you go. Kaylin's in the house as well. Kaylin, hello, Kaylin. And TJ is in the house. TJ, I heard you had a conversation recently. Little bird told me, whispered in my ear, that you had a conversation with somebody and you might be coming on the show soon. So looking forward to that. Luke is in the house as well. Luke, how you doing, my friend? Looking good to see you. And also Trevor is in the house. Trevor is in the house. Nice. Well, you always know, if you've been on the live stream long enough or watching the live stream long enough, I always start off every live stream with, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? So I've got my insulated swig cup with my stickers on it and all that fun stuff. I am drinking water. I was actually on vacation this week. And so today I spent the majority of the day outside working on the farm and got to keep hydrated. So tell me in the comment box, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? Again, I'm drinking water. Water is the absolute best. Also, if you're also on this platform, for those who are watching on the YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and all those other fun places, you know, if you do me a favor, if you appreciate the content that we're putting out, would you mind clicking on this QR code right there? Yeah, go buy me a cup of coffee. Help pay for this podcast, please. My wife is getting tired of paying the bills, okay? I need some money to help pay for the podcast hosting and the graphics and the video editing software, and all that stuff costs money. So make sure you click on that QR code right there. Yes, you can buy me a cup of coffee. You can even schedule a 15-minute one-on-one call with me after hours, of course, to discuss anything related to the ICT industry, pulling cable, estimating cables, certifying cable, project management, estimating, even career path questions. So yeah, make sure you do that. And then also make sure you visit the webpage afterwards, because it's always there as well. So today's acronym challenge, because this week, if you're paying attention to if you pay attention to my acronym challenges on LinkedIn, I'm in Chapter 4 of the Outside Plant Manual, Chapter 4, Pathways and Spaces. This acronym comes from that, right? So here is the question. The acronym AGH. AGH. What does that acronym AGH? AGH. Somebody tell me in the chat box, please. What does AGH mean? I'll give you a few seconds there to answer that while you're doing that. And then next time, you're going to do our motivational minute as well. So the acronym challenge, AGH, what does that mean? It means above ground housing. Above ground housing. Very good. So some people got that right. A lot of people don't know that one. I can always pick the easy ones, but why? Why pick the easy ones, right? Those are way just too easy. Luke is drinking a Gatorade. Nice. Shotzi's in the house. Shotzi's drinking, of course, Diet Dr. Pepper, as usual. Yep. And let me see. Trevor has a comment he wanted to look at. I've been getting a lot of questions about Page Game Changer cable recently. I love your thoughts on this type of extended distance cabling. Okay. I'll answer that as soon as I get past the intro section. So if I don't, remind me, okay? And Timothy's also in the house as well. Timothy, welcome back, my friend. Looking forward to talking to you a little bit later on in the group. So let's talk about the motivational minute. The motivational minute. Man, I'm getting lots of questions, man. Lots of questions. Love it already. So here's my one motivational minute for this week. Just one small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. One small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. You don't think so? Think about the last time you had a negative thought in the morning and how it ruined your whole day. Yeah, positive thoughts do the same thing. But why do we always migrate to the negative, right? You are good. You are valuable. You are smart, okay? And why not take control of your day? With that positive thought, you are taking control of your day. And if you're positive, then you're going to also make other people around you positive. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, as my dad always used to say, right? Okay, so let's talk about what last week's show. Raise your hand if you watched last week's show. Well, technically, it was published on Tuesday. I was a day late publishing it. I had Lee Renfro on. Yes, we talked about fiber safety, inside plant, outside plant, and some tips to help you be better at fiber. And if you don't know who Lee is, you need to go check out that episode because I'm telling you right now, he is the fiber guru. Fiber guru. Next 2 weeks, I'm doing a show on resumes. I get a lot of resume questions. I'm not sure why, but I get a lot of them. So make sure that you watch. It's an hour's worth of content. So I broke them into 2 different shows, and then I got another show filing behind that. Also, I'm so excited. Tomorrow night, 5 p.m., I am doing a fire stopping class. Yes, fire stopping class. And I happen to have one sitting here at my desk. Fire stop assembly. Yes, I'm going to talk about endothermic, intumescent, ablative, mechanical, non-mechanical, engineering judgments. Yes. And that class is currently being certified or not certified. I submitted to Bixby for CEC recognition. And once that gets approved, people who watch that will get CECs, continuing education credits. So fire stopping class. So make sure you watch out for details on that. Also, I'm starting an RCDD study group 3. It starts in 2 weeks. I'm having an orientation call tonight. After this call, I'm going to go over what all is involved in that program, the cost of the program, all that other fun stuff. Now, y'all didn't come here for all that stuff. So let's get right into the question. First one I want to hit is submitted to me on TikTok. And it's from Aaron. Aaron says, hey, Chuck, can you solve an argument that we're having with a partner over coiled shielded cabling? Okay, fire that question away. I'll be happy to do that. While he's typing that question, let me catch the other one that was submitted here. Trevor was asking about game changer cabling. So game changer cable, for those who may not know, so we're limited to 295 feet, or for permanent link, 328 feet for channel lengths. That is the reason the standard wrote that way is because they want the cable to work with 99% of the stuff out there. That's why we have those limits. So Game Changer did come out with a cable. If I remember, I think it's 22 gauge that claim that they can go past that 295 feet. Okay. Yes, they can go past that 295 feet. So for some of the lower Ethernet speeds. So, it might be an option for some people. I just realized my light is not on my rack in the back. I don't know why it's doing that. I'll fix it later. The thing with game changer cables, you have to use connectors that are specifically rated for 22 gauge conductors, which I think they sell as well. And yes, it might work with that system, but guess what? When that system goes offline and they try to put a newer system on it, it's not going to work. So yes, it does work in some scenarios. Just be super careful when applying it. Okay. All right. So here is the next question. Still waiting for the question to come in over here from Aaron. He hasn't typed it in yet. This one was submitted to me via LinkedIn by Timothy. He's in the house. I just kind of read it. He says, as a fairly new estimator, I struggle to walk the line on accuracy versus time spent on takeoffs, especially when it comes to lengths. Do you have any tips for estimating large projects for cable footages that won't make me lose sleep. Timothy, let me tell you this right here, right now. As an estimator for over 10 years, you will always lose sleep. Always lose sleep because every bid that goes out the door has a mistake in it. Every bid. The best you can do is try to limit the number of mistakes, come up with systems to help make your estimating quicker, faster, easier, and more accurate. But every estimate that goes out the door has a mistake. So as long as you're losing sleep, that tells me you're a good estimator. You are a good estimator because you are worried about that you might have missed something. If you told me you never worry about estimates, I'd have to question your estimating skills because every estimate. One of my most feared phone calls when I was an estimator. Hey, Chuck, yeah, you got the job. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What'd I forget? Yes. So the struggle for accuracy versus time spent when it comes to estimating cable lengths. So first off, try to set the customer expectations, right? What do I mean by that? Make sure that you convey to the customer, look, the more time they give you for the estimate, the more accurate your estimate's going to be, the more complete your design will be, right? Now, you may find that they have leeway on their date. That's just the date that they just arbitrarily picked out, right? Right? And you don't get what you don't ask for. The worst case scenario, the worst they can say is no. But you know what? At least you've told them, look, the more time you give me to estimate this, the better, the more accurate my estimate's going to be. Now, for those who may not know, estimators, they're pretty busy. They may not look it sometimes, but they are very busy because generally they're working on anywhere from 2 bids to 20 bids all at the same time. And those bids are all at different stages. One bid might have just came in the door. They haven't even opened the envelope yet. Another bid, they've read through it, and they're just trying to decide whether or not they want to bid it or not, right? It doesn't meet the company's qualifications. They might be actually doing the rake-offs. The rake-offs is where you actually do all the measurements, right? The bill of material might be sent out to distributors. You're waiting for the prices to come back. You might be building the hours in that project, right? Or you might be at the point where you've got it all together and you're writing the proposal, or you've submitted it. And so any one of those bids is going to be at different points in their estimation, which makes a nightmare for an estimator. So as an estimator, you better be extremely organized. Extremely organized. You better be good at like Excel and Word and stuff like that as well. You better be detail oriented because if you're not, you will be making a lot of mistakes. And you also have to be really good at time management. So here's the best ways to estimate cable footages. My preferred method always is to take the set of prints that the customer gave you, take a colored pencil and just draw a line down the hallways that you plan on using for the crews to run the cable down, and then take your digital wheel or your little ruler and measure each and every single run and put it in a spreadsheet. Now, it sounds like a lot of work, but trust me, in the long run, it's going to save you. It's going to save you because by doing it that way, oh, by the way, when you do that estimate, you're going to total them all up. Don't forget to add for your drops, from the ceiling to the wall location. Don't forget to add for your slack. And also don't forget your wastage, right? And what wastage is how much of the cable is going to get cut off and then not used again, or how much is left in that box at the end of the run. You always have wastage, right? Now, the reason I say when I have time to always go ahead and put it into that spreadsheet, because if you do your cable estimation that way, you have a solid foundation for creating what's called a cable pulling schedule. And a good project manager is going to create one of those. They're going to create one of those. That way they can maximize. They can say, okay, on this box of 1,000 feet, you're going to pull cables number 5, 18, and 16. That way you limit the amount of wastage on a job. And talking to Sean Repp and Pierce from All Green Lights, they use a cable pulling schedule. They create a cable pulling schedule before they pull the first cable to make sure that, and you've seen their work on all the social medias. They do absolutely fantastic work. Oh, here's a pro tip. If you're going to be measuring each and every run, you better make sure that your drawings are scale drawings. Somewhere around they'll tell you what the scale is. Always verify that scale. always verify that scale. So or you just find a door and measure the width of the door, and you should be able to determine pretty quickly what scale it is and if it is to scale. With a digital scale, the digital wheels, you can actually, if it's a scale drawing and you don't know the scale, you can take two known points where the distance is, and then put your digital scale in the learn mode and actually make your digital scale match that drawing. Now, the second tip here, if you're doing that first method I was just talking about, put in your terms and conditions that this estimate is based on the drawings submitted on whatever the date the drawings say, right? So if the drawings are May 18th, 2023, you're going to say that this estimate is based on drawings dated 5/18/2023. That way, if another, because it always happens, every single job, a new print comes out, and we may not get the new prints. And but here's what happens: the new print goes to the project manager or goes to the installation team. So they're pulling cables to those prints, not to the prints that you estimated off of. So the terms and conditions are the CYA. Okay. Now, if you have less time to figure out cable footages, you can do what's called averaging. Now, averaging is less accurate than the full method I just explained ago. You're basically using an average. What you do is you're making an assumption that when you look at the plans for the floor, that those drops are evenly spaced all throughout the floor. Okay. If they're not, averaging is not going to work for you very well. Like if all the drops are, clustered at the tail end, well, then you're going to have more cable in the project than you actually need. And that means you probably didn't win the project because your price was too high. If all of the modular furniture is clustered near the telecom room and you're using averaging, well, now you're going to run out of cable before you run out of work. So that's going to cause you problems as well. So be careful with using averaging. I'm just going to say that. I've used averaging. Because there have been times where customers said, I need this bid done today. Need it today. Okay. The more time you give me, the more accurate I can be. I don't care. I need to have this price by 5 o'clock today. By 5 o'clock today. Oh, okay. Yeah. So here's how you do averaging. So you want to measure your shortest run and your longest runs. Okay. And then what you can do is you're going to add for your drops, your slack, and your wastage. You'll total that all up and you'll divide it by your sample size. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you probably want to do more than 2 cables, right? If you have a floor plan that's got, 1,000 cables, try to do at least 25, 50, 100, because the bigger the sample size, the more accurate your averaging will be. Okay. Now, another tip, if you're using the averaging, put in your terms and conditions that this estimate is based on the average run length of whatever you found during your averaging. And you reserve the right to bill for change orders based on actual test results if the actual average is longer than what you estimated. Okay. You get what I'm doing with the terms and conditions? That is your CYA. That's your get out of jail free, right? Now, if you don't have any time whatsoever to bid, like I told you, the customer wants that bid today, you can use the industry average of 150 feet, right? So 150 feet times the number of cables and pulls you're going to be doing, plus your wastage. Now, that 150 feet is kind of a controversial number. A couple of years back, for my day job, I was evaluating all the test results for warranties. So over a year, I kept track of them. I would dump them into a spreadsheet, and I kept track of them, 250,000 test results, and I averaged them, and I found that the average was 147.8 feet. So if you want to average, just do 150 feet times the number of cables. Again, in the terms and conditions, make sure you put in your estimate is based on the average run length of 150 feet. And you reserve the right to bill for a change order based on actual test results. Okay. I hope that helped you, Timothy. Okay. Next question. This one comes from Harvey. Harvey says, my foreman says not to use soap to help pull cable through a conduit. Why not? Well, Harvey, sounds to me like you have a very smart foreman. It's a great question because you should only use pulling lubricant that has been tested to be used with high performance data cabling. Okay. Something like Polywater or Clear Glide. Now, when you look at those two pulling lubricants, the majority of that pulling lubricant is going to be water. Polywater said on the show before that it's 97% water, 3% solids, right? So those companies like Polywater and ClearGlide, they get samples of different manufactured cables and they test to see how the cable pulling lubricant affects the jacket. Does it cause it to degrade? Does it cause it to do anything? Does it cause electrical performance problems? They test it. Dawn dish soap, they don't test their cable for cable jackets because it's not designed to be used as that. Right? The soap from the men's room, the soap from the women's room, it has not been tested. And in fact, using soap from a bathroom may void the manufacturer warranty. Right? And like I said, since it hasn't been tested, we don't know how that soap is going to affect the long term, over long term of the jacket of the cable. And here's another thing for you: when people use soap, right? Some soaps, when they dry, can act like glue. Now, here's a pro tip for you: only use enough pulling lubricant to get the cable through the cable tray, or not the cable tray, the conduit, right? Because if you put too much lubricant on it, you're going to really make the person at the other end of the cable mad, because as soon as that cable comes out of the head, they can't pull it anymore because it's so slick, right? And if you put too much pulling lubricant, remember, it's 97% water, it can cause insertion loss and cause you a fail. Next time you put cable pulling lubricant on a cable on a project, after you get done pulling it, test it, save that test result. 2 weeks later, when you get done with the project, test it again, and then compare those two test results. You will see that the insertion loss values change as that lubricant goes from a solid state from a liquid state to a solid state, right? Somebody asked on TikTok, do I prefer pulling from the closet or the field? Depends. I've done both. It depends on, am I using Weto boxes, spools? My preference has always been to pull from the closet out, but there are some scenarios where pulling from the closet, from the work area outlet back, makes more sense. Hey, if you have a comment on how on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, if you have a preference, tell us in the chat box. Which do you prefer, from the closet out or back? Okay. Question number 3, and I forgot to capture who this one came from. Says, Chuck, what is 4x the OD of a cable, and how does it affect the cable performance? 4x. Somebody says some lubricant can be flammable, icky pick, paste, or something like this. Icky pick is not a cable pulling lubricant. Icky pick is a water barrier for outside plant cabling. It's not designed for pulling lubricants. Okay, so getting back to the 4 times outside diameter cable. So when you look at a 4-pair cable, the pairs are all separated inside of that cable to reduce the effects of EMI, electromagnetic interference. Now, EMI is defined as when one electric or electronic device interferes with another electric or electronic device. There are 3 components to EMI: an interfering source, a susceptible unit, and a coupling between those two. Now, everybody's probably watching this live stream tonight has probably at some point toned out cables, right? So when you put a toner on a cable and you go in the telecom room, when you stick the probe in that bundle, when you hear the sound, the signal bleeding to the other cable, that is EMI. In that scenario, the interfering source is the cable with the tone. The susceptible units are the other cables, and the coupling between the two is distance. Okay. So one of the ways that we get rid of EMI is we separate the interfering source from the susceptible units, right? That's why when you look at the cable jackets and the cable sizes, they keep getting bigger as we start going up in our grades. Like Cat 5e is smaller than Cat 6a because Cat 5e is only operating to 100 megahertz. Cat 6a is operating to 500 megahertz. So it goes up a lot higher. So we have to separate those pairs further apart to reduce things called internal interferences. Internal interferences include near and crosstalk, far and crosstalk, power sum near and crosstalk, power sum far and crosstalk. It's interference that's happening inside the cable. So we're keeping them apart so they don't interfere with each other. And some of the cables come with internal components to help that. Like, for example, the crossweb separator, maybe the mylar tape that help keeps those pairs farther apart so they don't interfere with each other. Now, when you exceed the bend radius, now what you're doing is you're making those pairs come closer together, and they're going to start interfering with each other. Now, the easiest way to figure out what is the bend radius is call the manufacturer, find out what the OD for the cable is, and multiply that by 4. Cat 6A, if you look it up in the standards, is allowed to be 0.357 of an inch outside diameter. So if you put in 0.357 times 4, you'll find that the bend radius for that cable is about 1.357 says 1.428 inches, almost an inch and a half. Almost an inch and a half. But there's an easier way to figure out bend radiuses, minimum bend radiuses. Take a piece of cable that you are working with, take a piece of the cable you're working with, flip it into a loop. Notice the loop is in a straight line with my hands. I will slowly pull my hands apart. At some point, the cable kicks out by itself. There's your minimum bend radius right there. Don't exceed it. Okay? Now you don't have to actually do any math calculation. That's always fun, right? Next question, what is better, tier 1 or tier 2 testing? So what they're asking here is about testing fiber cabling. And it kind of depends on what it is that you're doing, right? If you're trying to do final project testing for a customer or for a manufacturer, like trying to get a warranty, most of them are going to require tier 1 testing. If you're trying to troubleshoot, tier 2 testing is what you really want to use, because the tier 2 tester is going to give you, I'll explain in a second. So tier 1 tester using a power meter and a light source. And typically tier 1 testers do 3 things. They give you loss, length, and polarity. Now it's really good for manufacturers looking to make sure that their fiber didn't get damaged, and they'll require that for warranty. But it's not good for troubleshooting, because you don't, if you get a failed test result with a tier 1 tester, you don't know if it's this mated pair or that mated pair or the fiber in between. All you know is you have too much loss somewhere. Now, me, because of my ego, I'm going to assume that it was your connector that made the mistake. Your connector, not mine. So I'm going to cut off your connector, and I'm going to go ahead and re-terminate and retest it, and I will probably find out, oops, it was mine. So if I'm using a tier 1 tester, tier 2 tester, I could have avoided that, because a tier 2 tester is great for troubleshooting. Okay. So what a tier 2 tester does is there's a laser, and it emits a light at a specific wavelength, right? And this pulse of light travels through the fiber, through the strands, and as the pulse moves down the fiber, portions of that transmitted light are going to be reflected or refracted and scattered back towards the emitting source, towards the photodetector in the OTDR. And it does some calculations based on that. So it's calculating the length, it's calculating the loss and stuff like that. That's why some manufacturers don't like tier 2 testing for warranty purposes, because you're calculating the loss, not measuring the actual loss. Although there are some OTDRs that do measure loss. So check with your manufacturer on that. So with that tier 2 tester, I can easily look at the events and say, oh, it was my connector that was bad. So that's where a tier 2 tester comes into better play, right? The next question, and this one is is from Fred. He says, do I need a copy of the ANSI standards, or is the TDMM enough? So ANSI, American National Standards Institute, that's the standards for our industry. TDMM, Telecom Distribution Methods Manual, that's the book that we use to study to get our RCDD. Now, those two books are similar, but they're not quite the same. So the first question I would have to ask you is, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to study for your RCDD exam, you're going to want the TDMM. Okay, you're going to want that TDMM. If you're trying to research or evaluate or confirm information that came to you in a bid or from a customer, then the standards. But there's a huge difference in the cost. I got a set of the standards. Actually, they're in my backpack in the other room. I got a complete set of the standards. And if memory serves me correctly, I want to say I spent like $1,200 on them. Well, the podcast spent $1,200 on them. A TDMM is going to cost you between $385 and $435, right? So it's a TDMM is cheaper. So the TDMM does include information from the ANSI standards, but it also gives you some additional information that you won't find. My standards are usually sitting over here, that you won't find in the standards, right? Like principles of transmission, project administration, and execution, right? Those are just two things I can think off the top of my head that aren't in the standards. Think of it this way. The ANSI is the NFL rule book. It's the NFL rule book, right? Those are the things that if you hit the quarterback while he's throwing the ball, you're going to be penalized. Blah 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 blah. That's the rule book. But then the players also have what's called a playbook that their team publishes, right? It tells them how to play the game in their style within the rules. That's what the TDMM does. The ANSI is the rules. Oops, must be 6:30. ANSI is the rules. The TDMM says, here's how you do that. Because you will find some differences between those two books. Now, as a company, you should have copies of both. You should have copies of the standards and also the TDMM. If you are an individual, like a project manager, estimator, I would say invest in a TDMM. Don't go out and buy the standards. I didn't mention this earlier, but a lot of distribution will actually do summaries of the standards, and you can download those summaries for free, and that saves you from having to kind of buy those books, right? Is it going to have everything in it that's in the standards? No, but it'll get you 90% of the way there, right? So here we go. So let me see here. Let's got another question just came in. This one is from Electronics on Site. Hey Chuck, what is the best academy to become certified OSP telecom engineer? We are a startup company trying to get OSP serving jobs. My education budget is about $500. Okay. The most recognized outside plant certification you get is going to be from Bixby. It's the Bixby OSP certification. You have to buy a copy of the outside plant design reference manual, OSPDRM. Yeah, OSPDRM. Oh, there's my puppy. And read that book and then take that test. So since you specifically said certified, you're gonna have to take that test. Now, I didn't price the outside plant manual, but if the TDMM is $385 for a member, the outside plant manual is probably the same, maybe a little bit less. So that's under your $500. But now you have to read through that and then understand all that and then test for that. Now they do charge you for the test. So that'll be about the closest you can get for $500. I do recommend that you find an outside plant study group or create a study group. I mentioned I'm kicking off an RCD study group in 2 weeks, and I'm doing the orientation meeting tonight. Get a group of people, like-minded people together, and have a study group. And that way you have accountability. Make sure you get through everything and you understand the information. Because trust me, taking the test is going to be kind of hard. So that's the best way to get your outside plant certification, and probably one of the most recognized ones as well. Anthony is in the house. Hello, Anthony. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, we are at 6:32, so we're at a 30-minute mark because you only do this for 30 minutes. So I don't know if you noticed, but I'm doing this every other week now. I do the after hours live every other week, but I broadcast every Thursday night. So next Thursday night I do what's called low voltage chat with Kevlin. So make sure you watch those too, because I think next week we're trying to get somebody on who you really want to talk to. Yes, this person is the recognized as one of the best installers in the industry. I'll just leave it at that. I'll let you figure out who that is. So until next time, everybody, remember, knowledge is power.